In the 12th century, in the Rhineland, northern Italy and France, Cathars became a very important religious sect. Catharism, like the Bogomil sect, probably emerged in the Balkans and Byzantine Empire and spread to Western Europe. They disagreed with many of the sacraments of the Catholic Church, like marriage and baptism, plus they believed in reincarnation, disagreed with war, avoided eating meat, and treated the genders equally. They also set up their own churches and built castles in southern France, and refused to pay tithes to the Catholic Church. The papacy had tried to undermine the sect for some time. For instance, in 1147, Pope Eugene III sent a papal legate to the predominantly Cathar districts around Foix, Toulouse and Narbonne. Plus there were papal missions to Toulouse in 1178, and 2 years later a bishop, Henry of Marcy, was invited by Raymond V of Toulouse to lead an armed expedition against his vassal, the Viscount of Carcassonne, Roger II. When Innocent III became Pope in 1198, he tried to end Catharism by replacing bishops in Cathar strongholds like Toulouse with more aggressive bishops. And St. Dominic, founder of the Dominican order, tried to peacefully convert the Cathars by debating with them. However, unlike his father, Raymond VI of Toulouse refused to allow papal legates on his territory. He had, after all, given his cities considerable amount of freedom, but he was also threatened by his neighbours. The county of Toulouse was surrounded by the Holy Roman Empire, France, Aragon and English-controlled Aquitaine, all of which had claims to the region. But his refusals to persecute Cathars got him excommunicated in 1207 and deposed a year later when a papal legate was killed in the region. And in 1209, shortly after his disastrous Fourth Crusade, Pope Innocent III launched a crusade against the Cathars, or Albigensians as they were called. King Philip II of France was preoccupied with the English in the north who didn't participate, so the Crusaders were led by Simon of Montfort, a seasoned crusader. He led an army of 10,000 men into Toulouse in June and was quickly joined by Raymond, who agreed to help and persecute the Cathars in order to reclaim his land. They marched on Béziers, a Cathar stronghold, and captured the city in early July, and proceeded to massacre the entire population. A couple weeks later, the Crusaders captured Carcassonne and forced the population to flee the city naked. The treatment of the civilians in these cities encouraged towns like Albi, Montreal and Le Maux to surrender without a fight. But Simon continued campaigning over the next 2 years, capturing strongholds like Bram, Termes and Cabaret. But Pope Innocent was persuaded to once again excommunicate Raymond of Toulouse at the Council of Montpellier in 1211. So with hopes of securing the county for himself, Simon marched on the city of Toulouse, but ran out of supplies and broke off the siege. This allowed Raymond to go on the offensive, however his counterattack came to an end within a couple of months. So Raymond decided to get help from his brother-in-law, Peter II of Aragon in 1213. Together they fought the Crusaders in September at the Battle of Muret, but Philip was killed during the battle, the Aragonese left and Raymond fled the country. Simon used this opportunity to march on to Toulouse again, but Raymond returned in 1216 with his son, also named Raymond, and launched a new rebellion. Raymond was more successful this time thanks in part to Honorius III becoming the new pope. His armies recaptured Toulouse, held off an attack on the city, and even killed Simon of Montfort in 1218. But Simon's son, Amaury VI, took over the crusade and, despite reconquering some towns, failed to take Toulouse. Raymond VII became ruler of Toulouse in 1222, but Louis VIII became king of France a year later, and Amaury maintained his claims to the region. They managed to get papal backing in 1225, and another crusade was called for as Raymond was excommunicated. Raymond did manage to form an alliance with Roger Bernard II of Foix, and together they took Carcassonne. And although Louis VIII died, he was replaced by Louis IX, and the Crusaders recaptured many towns and pillaged the countryside of Toulouse for a couple years. So Raymond, now unable to fight back against the French and Crusaders, made peace in 1229. He was recognised as ruler of Toulouse but had to destroy its defences and persecute Cathars in his lands. Plus his daughter married Louis's brother, meaning Toulouse, once he died, left his family. As for the Cathars, an inquisition was set up a few years later, and over the next century or so they were heavily persecuted. They did temporarily find refuge and a headquarters in Montségur, but in the 1240s the French captured the castle and burnt many to death. And Catharism seems to have all but disappeared by the 14th century.